Hey everyone, Hammy here, how's it going? There's been a bunch of new changes as of January 2017 to Overwatch on the PTR. A few hero tweaks coming in, Ana is getting a tweak, D.va, Roadhog and the infamous by now Hook 2.0 as well. This may see a switch away from a few heroes, maybe some changes on the more pro esports end of the game, with the infamous tank meta of the moment perhaps seeing a bit of a switch due to particularly the Ana tweaks. I'm quickly going to round up my thoughts on these and share the news with you, but before I do, I'm going to have a quick reflection on how we as a community and us as content creators and YouTubers react to these kind of changes. First things first, I got thinking about this from an interesting point the Overwatch team made on the boards the other day. Answering a thread about the perceived changes to D.va on the boards entitled Is the Sky Falling, I greatly enjoyed the post reply here from Jeff of the Kaplan. No, the sky is not falling. 0.26% of Overwatch players have tested these changes on the PTR. The average playtime on the PTR, including sitting in menus and similar, is 26 minutes. I encourage people to log in and try these changes for a few nights, not one anecdotal match, and see how you feel about them by formulating your own opinion. Now, pretty strong words there coming out from Jeff. Now, aside the fact that this reminds me of A, Chicken Little, or Henny Penny to some, particularly us in the UK, and B, Chief Vital Statistics if you're a fan of Asterix, both of whom share the fear of the sky falling on their heads. Now, my old fairy tales and kids cartoons aside, it highlights a danger or a challenge that communities face around balance and indeed us as content creators when we talk about it. Whenever a change comes around and someone, including me of course, comments on it, there's kind of three innate challenges, particularly in Overwatch. How much time have we spent actually playing these changes? And then what level has it been played at? Skill-wise, competitive, what kind of mode, and the context. Thirdly, has it been played on PTR or for a long time in live? The ways this affect opinion are fairly obvious. Time, have you played long enough to get a feel of the changes? The kind of level, what skill level is the player? Have they been playing in competitive? Have they been playing on quick play? And then finally, the very fact that these tests are on the PTR. The fact for that is you do get some serious play on the PTR, particularly if you can get a bunch of people together, play an in-house game, but on the whole, quick play and competitive with any major changes, such as new heroes and similar, can still be a bit of a mess around. There is a it's only the public test realm mentality that a lot of players will do. They'll mess around a bit, try the changes, get a feel for them, which is great, but it's not going to be the same as playing it in a serious competitive setting. There is a danger, and this is what Kaplan is trying to highlight, that people may cry nerf or buff off this small sample size of this specific situation, and then things may get circled around a bit in an echo chamber. Maybe YouTube and opinions there, maybe Reddit, maybe social media, and perhaps even the forums. This can particularly happen with, I'd say, widely held opinions. Let's take something like Roadhog's hook is OP, or loudly voiced ones. So back to Mr. Kaplan's post. If only 0.26% of the player base play the PTR, and from those, many of those might be content creators, people like myself or other people who want to get the news as it happens, want to try and form opinions early, then certain opinions are going to get spread around pretty quickly. As a result, it's worth keeping Kaplan's post in mind. You should always try and give stuff a go yourself if at all possible, and bear in mind that you're going to be seeing opinions from a very small sample size in a situation that's generally not as typical as the one you'd have if you were playing regularly on the live server rather than on a public test server. Personally, before I state my own first thoughts, I've spent an hour or so on each changed hero on the PTR in a mixture of competitive and quick play, and to be honest, a chunk of that was also on Oasis, which, because it's only just been introduced to live, people aren't hugely used to playing in a competitive context. So these are not enough for me to make conclusive opinions, and of course, I'm a platinum or so level player. So with all of those caveats, caveat emptor, buyer beware, and take that in mind. Most of my gameplay opinions and news are going to be formed from that perspective. However, I would definitely put my +1 or upvote on Kaplan's post and say that if you can get on a PC, or if you're a PC player, go on the public test realm and try and play these changes for as much time as you're happy with. Then you can get more of an opinion than mine, any other YouTubers, or indeed even Reddit or similar. First up, Ana's Biotic Grenade is getting a tweak. The healing boost that it gives to allies when it hits them has been decreased by 50%, and Dev said this was because it was too much, especially when used on targets with large health pools. Now this is referring to Ana's effect on the tank meta. She is a strong hero. Even with tweaks to nano boost, she's still been widely picked in esports and also in higher levels of play. People like Ana, she's a fun hero to play and she can scale. If you get better as a player, you can feel that you're able to do more with her. Her healing boost combined with the grenade's increase in radius that she had in her last significant patch meant that with reasonable grenade aiming and a big stack of tank targets, these targets with huge health pools, Ana could do a pretty good job of keeping them alive, if not solo, then almost so. When you add into the fact that in Overwatch, a lot of tanks can be very solid damage dealers, Ana was even stronger with the nano boost ability on top as well. Although I'm pretty sad that one of my favourite, if not my favourite hero is getting this tweak, I can understand why. Now, how's this going to affect things? Honestly, at my platinum level of play, I'm not entirely sure I'm going to feel a huge difference. It's not as though in a competitive game at plat, I would see 4 tanks turning up too often. Rarely you get 3, most of the time people are still citing 2 tanks, 2 healers, 2 DPS. Ana as a hero is still going to do a lot of the stuff I feel that she does well. At esports and on higher level professional play, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that particular meta, but you may not see huge changes filtering down to your average ladder or ranked game. Next up, D.va. Now this is an interesting one. She's pretty much had a flip reverse on her health and armour. Her health's been increased from 200 to 4, but her armour has been decreased from 400 to 200. A few tweaks on her cannons as well. Bullet damage for individual bullets decreased from 3 to 2. Number of bullets per shot increased from 8 to 11, and this has been because apparently the devs felt as though she had no weaknesses, even against heroes that should be effective against bigger targets, like Reaper. The changes to fusion cannons will result apparently in a small overall decrease in damage, but they should feel more consistent. So, D.va. I've always liked her as a hero. She did used to get shredded a little too easily, or some people felt in the past. Since the changes she's had recently, and the kind of tweaks that Soldier has had that has made Soldier 76 so prevalent recently, D.va has come into the meta even more in this 3 or 4 tank structure. She does a great job of shutting down Soldier ults, she does a great job of eating other ults anyway, and her increased survivability made it easier for her to do these kind of things. Now, due to how armour works, and this will be a real quick summary, this is a pretty big change. Things shooting many small damage hits are worse against armour. Things with bigger damage per individual hit are better. D.va could get in Soldier's face with Defense Matrix and all. Now this is a bit more difficult. Once her smaller armour layer has been stripped away, she's a big walking juicy health target, and it feels a little bit like a Winston in terms of how people get in her face and gun her out of mech pretty quickly once that armour has dropped. In my play on the PTR, I did feel myself popping out of mech more than on live, but then again, we've been so used to D.va having this huge set of armour, we've been used to playing a lot more aggressively and being up in the face of everyone with this armour plating like the Death Stars. You're bound to notice popping out of the mech more as a result. Okay, perhaps that's not the best example. I suppose you can argue that the Death Star wasn't really damaged on its armour from the outside. Bad Star Wars comparisons aside, maybe a bit of a playstyle change or some more time with D.va won't make her feel as painful, and maybe it won't have as big an effect as people are thinking. I don't mind the damage changes on D.va so much. The damage doesn't feel hugely different, but I need to play with that a little bit more. Last but not least, Roadhog. I've explained his Hook 2.0 changes, as have many people, but as a very, very quick summary, targets are pulled directly in front of him rather than straight to him, apart from in cases where he drastically rotates. Hooked targets are now released if they leave his line of sight before being pulled, and this is a significant one I'll talk about. Line of sight checks, which detect if targets should be hit or not, are now done from his position rather than the Hook's 2. The goal here was that it should feel more consistent for Roadhog players, who had sometimes had problems with Hook targets being pulled to the side and behind them. To enemies, it should feel maybe a bit more reasonable, because they shouldn't be hooked or pulled or slid around corners when the hook registered but the enemy had already moved on. I'm not a good Roadhog player, he's my least played tank, but in the chaos of the PTR and a few games, I could still feel myself landing hooks, even if I do fluff my combos. That's just me being bad at Roadhog. I did notice a lot less through space and time type hooks. Sorry, I just wanted an excuse to use my echo audio effect. Sure, Hook does feel a little bit harder to land now against dancing targets who are using terrain with this break of line of sight. So in my vid before the PTR release of this change, I said it was probably the thing that would need tuning or filling out, and a lot of videos that you may have seen have come out since the PTR is released. It does feel a bit harder. Genji's fast-moving characters, Soldier 76s with sprint, they can dance, they can strafe, they can peek around corners, hooks can connect, you'll get the registration noise on connecting, but they'll break because the target has already moved on. However, this doesn't stop the threat of Roadhog hooking. Roadhog still zones. He's still a monster, DPS-wise, tank-wise really, and with the tweak to his hook now more consistently pulling enemies in front of him, good Hog players won't have to worry as much about targets that they do acquire. The target's going to be pulled in front of them. It makes their combo that little bit more assured. At the moment, you can still pull some shenanigans on the PTR as illustrated here, but Jeff Goodman, lead balance designer, took to the boards again to keep people in the loop. Fixes are on the way. So what's going to happen to the Hogfather? I think the key here is whether he really drops off hard or not. The threat of a pick still remains, although people can dance around corners and defend against it maybe a little bit more easily. At higher levels of play, people are going to be corner dancing, people are better with their movement, and perhaps he may see a bit less picks as a result. Now at lower levels of play or on the competitive ladder, he might actually be a bit stronger, because it depends on the skill levels of people as to whether they're good enough with movement to dodge the hooks, to use the corners better, as a lot of people have been illustrating, to try and avoid these hooks, and Good Roadhogs who can get pulls, get their hook on target, will actually facilitate more combos as they'll have their targets dropping more reliably in front of them. So what's this really going to mean for myself and yourself, the man or woman in the street playing Overwatch? Well, Ana is still strong, I feel. I need to play her some more. In esports level play, both viewers and some players have been complaining about 3 or 4 tank meta for quite a little while, where you've got 4 tanks with 2 supports and Ana being the linchpin of it all. Her Gren radius is still the same. The healing boost dropping a little bit lower will make it a little bit harder for her to keep up multiple high health targets on her owner in that small situation, but she's still an awesome hero. D.va, well, she's certainly going to feel weaker in the role people have been playing her in recently. It might be that people need to adapt their D.va play. It might be that once she's played a little bit more, she will still get play in terms of shutting down Soldier, in terms of using that defense matrix. She's not going to be such a frontliner maybe as she has been recently. In a game state where tanks were feeding Ana though, and Ana's been held to keep these tanks alive, Blizzard have kind of attacked this both ways. They've made it harder for Ana to keep those tanks alive, and they've tweaked 2 of the tanks, D.va and Roadhog. So, consequences? Well, Rein's not going anywhere. Quite a chunk of play can be who breaks Reinhardt's shield, and when it's broken, can that team take advantage of it? Zarya is still going to be tough pretty much. She has had that little drop not too long ago to the amount of charge she can get, but people are still shredding with Zarya. With a little bit of a descent maybe in play of D.va, Soldier 76 is probably going to feel even nicer than he has before. And he's doubly useful because anything breaking that Reinhardt shield becomes even more important, and Soldier has been used for that already. We might see a bit more Reaper coming back. The extra tank slots that people have been using maybe will be swapped for some DPS. The Roadhog tweaks, well, they will have some effect at esports or high levels of play maybe, but I'm not entirely sure whether his pick rate is going to be dropping a mass in our day-to-day competitive that we play. Well, certainly not at my level anyway. There you go, there's a few of my thoughts on maybe how we should think about responding to balance changes, nerfs, buffs and similar, as well as a little bit of a review from my window on the world into what these changes might mean. Have you played these on the PTR? If not, why haven't you? Do let me know what you think about them. What do you think about the tweaks to the Roadhog hook? Do you think it's gone too far the other way? Is Roadhog's hook too weak for you now? What about D.va? She was very, very strong. She wasn't played so much. Do you think she's going to disappear? Or, as Jeff has said, the sky isn't falling. Do you think that D.va's in that kind of position? And Ana, are you an Ana main? Do you play a lot of her? Do you think this is going to be a feeling change for you? And what does it feel like on the PTR? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks so much for tuning in. Lore's going to be returning next week. Thank you for your patience. If you want to see more of my Overwatch lore, hero interactions, voice lines, skin lore, map lore, and everything to do with the story and world of Overwatch, please do take a look at the videos and playlists below. Cheers for tuning in. I've been Hammy. Take it easy.